On this channel, I've noticed that a lot of the newer viewers don't really know what I'm talking about when I use the anatomical terms such as jaw ramus, zygomatic bone, or mandible body, and partially this is because I've taken for granted what I expect people to already know since we've covered this on the channel in the past. In this new series, we're going to be bringing back an older series called Defining Beauty, but in a much more newbie-friendly format so that you can revise what you already know or learn a thing or two and see how certain anatomical facial features affect your appeal very greatly. Today's episode will be focusing on the cheekbones. Since the zygomatic region, or the cheekbones, has a broad array of talking points, particularly we'll just be focusing on what's known as the OG curve and how we can tell apart high versus low cheekbones. What do we mean when we say the cheekbones? Now, first let's get some cheekbone terminology out of the way. That should help us as we go through some examples. The cheekbones, also known as the zygoma, the zygomatic bones, or the malar bones, are a large bone mass that lies around our midfacial region. They border other midfacial bones like the maxilla and infraorbital bones, which are your eye socket bones, to create what's known as the midface complex. The zygomatic arch is the part of the cheekbone that is the most identifiable by the average person who has no knowledge of facial aesthetics. So when you say the cheekbone, what you're really referring to anatomically is the zygomatic arch. It is the arch that cheekbones make with the temporal bones near the forehead and the bones connecting to the lower part of the face. Hopefully, this is kind of making sense with the diagrams. The outermost part of this arch is called the zygion, and this will also usually be where the widest part of the face is. Similarly coined, the gonion is the outermost position bone of the jaw body. So it's the equivalent for, say, the midface, much like the gonion is the equivalent for the jaw. The OG curve, which is the topic of today's video, is referring to an outline or a curvilinear imaginary line, so it doesn't really exist, that these bones make on the face. This can be viewed from a 3/4 profile or front on. Usually it is easiest to show the OG curve in a 3/4 profile because most people hold too much facial fat to have a pronounced OG curve in their frontal view. That elusive hollow cheek look that so many people talk about is not as common as we make it seem like on the Koo's channel, and if all of this seems very complicated, then perhaps looking at some examples is going to help it make more sense. The second question we would probably ask is, how does changing the shape of our cheekbones change the way our face looks? Now, first off, we have model Corey Wallace, and we can see the widest part of his face, his zygion, if you remember, is very high set right near the eyes. There is a lot of distance between that point and the lowest part of his jaw at the gonion, which is again the widest part of the jaw. To really create that high cheekbone look, there has to be enough distance between these 2 points, and this is why even really lean faces might not get that model tier hollow cheek look. There has to be the right amount of distance. We will see in some of the later examples of how a shorter face just can't achieve this same look, even despite the zygomatic bones, or the cheekbones, being much higher up in the midface. There are a couple of requirements to the hollow cheek look that we're going to be explaining. The best way to explain this look is to think of a 300-meter high mountain and a 600-meter one. If you're climbing mountain 1 and are almost at the top, you would say you are pretty high up on that mountain. Still, a person almost at the top of mountain 2 is still high up on that mountain, but it is clear who looks higher when you compare them side to side. To really create the illusion of height and depth with the cheekbones, the face has to have some kind of downward dimension to it. A really short face just looks round no matter how high the cheekbones are. We've touched on dimorphic facial traits in our video on why Zoe Kravitz was selected for Catwoman. To sum up that video, shorter facial height is a feminizing quality. Since men typically have taller faces, although that's up to a limit, their cheekbones usually appear higher set and more compact relative to their total facial height. Model Paolo Roldan also has high cheekbones with little distance between his zygoma and his eyes. If we soften his OG curve and make it less clear how high or low his cheekbones are, he loses some of that look that Western modeling standards really seem to love. Another model Hei-Yin Lee, has less of a pronounced OG curve, and her cheekbones can also be classified as medium set. This overall rounds out her cheek area and the face as a whole. Altering model Marta Del Cano's high cheekbones gives the appearance of weaker dentofacial growth, and granted it was only on one side of her face, it makes all the difference in what modeling agencies tend to look for. There are some exceptions though, like model Nayara Oliveira, who has other prominent dentofacial markers despite having a less pronounced OG curve. Her cheekbones are quite low set and just lack that drawn out verticality that you need for the model tier look. A simple adjustment does go a long way here. Her cheeks are less rounded and the zygoma is higher set. We don't want to go overboard making the cheekbones protrude excessively, or it will hurt facial harmony. Anasia Jean has moderately high set cheekbones, and we can see how lengthy the OG curve appears in contrast with Nayara. Lemon Chopinod has high cheekbones as well. One way we can tell is that there is not much distance between his eyes and the widest part of the face. Do you know what that widest part's called? That's right, the zygoon. Now, one thing we can do in Photoshop to accentuate the OG curve is to add some shadows. To be fair, this technique is used on almost every single photo in the modeling industry, so it's pretty standard cut and dry stuff. Some of this has probably already been done in the next example. Here is English model Efosa Iumbomwen, and you can see some subtle shadows along his OG curve, making his already high cheekbones look much more pronounced. His OG curve makes up over 70% of his mid-face height, and this is another way that you can generally tell how high up the cheekbones are. Lower zygomatic bones will obviously make up less than half of the mid-face height compared to, say, Efosa's. Even in the side profile, Efosa has extremely pronounced zygomatic bones. He has really good dentofacial growth. Another model, Mark Schulz, also has medium to high cheekbones, and yes, I know that this is kind of getting repetitive seeing all these models, but hopefully you can start to appreciate the subtleties in mid-face shape and morphology that make these faces so striking and attractive. Originally Canadian model Alyssa Ali also has high cheekbones, as you can see from her OG curve. Research by Liu et al. Tried to understand how certain facial features correlated with beauty scoring. High cheekbones positively correlated with beauty, and low p-values would also suggest that these findings are quite significant. Looking young and heavy makeup were also highly correlated with beauty, although interestingly enough, the latter two would seem to tie into having high cheekbones. In plain English, this means that using makeup to contour your cheekbones, actually having high cheekbones, or just being young and youthful are three things that correlate to higher beauty scoring, especially for women. Also, a study by Diana Drelos titled The Perceptions of Beauty found high cheekbones as a universal beauty indicator that transcends all skin colors, ethnicities, and facial structures. She notes how estrogen influences the development of cheekbones, and thus high cheekbones are a strong indicator of reproductive prowess for women, but also on men it's a feminizing characteristic, but it can still lead to a very attractive pretty boy look. And we've covered why pretty boy looks are desirable to begin with in another video. That's not to say that low cheekbones are inherently unattractive, but generally there is a reason that Western beauty standards seems to select for what's known as costly biological displays. Even in men, high cheekbones signal strong dentofacial growth and lean facial features, two of which are very desirable things because in the West, very few people are lean, if you've seen the obesity rates, and very few people have strong dentofacial growth for a number of reasons in another video we'll make in the future. Without going into an endocrinology lesson, men also require estrogen in sexual development, regulation, and signaling, so a man that can afford to have higher estradiol levels, because it is in balance with his higher testosterone levels, may also benefit from the reproductive signaling of high cheekbones. Just a quick reminder halfway through the video, if you want to discuss more about the science, you want to ask us more questions, then join the Discord. The link is in the bio. Our staff is oftentimes, they have that running on the other computers, so we do see your messages while we're working and we're doing our own thing. Model Zoe Barnard has high cheekbones, but they're not overly pronounced, and so her OG curve just looks a bit flat. This is not necessarily an unattractive trait if we make her cheekbones more pronounced, but it does give a bit of a Kim K effect. You can let us know which you think is more attractive in the comments below, but adding some cheekbone protrusion does seem to help her three-quarter profile, but it's hard to say exactly how it would harmonize with her facial width in the front of view, and that's something you need to consider as well. It's not like she had bad cheekbones in the first place. We already know high cheekbones are probably the single most selected for facial feature in the modeling world. However, this is not exclusive to modeling. A lot of the Hollywood movie industry also seems to select for high cheekbones, but of course it has to align with the character that they're trying to cast, but high cheekbones likely won't hurt your chances of acting. Chris Hemsworth has exceptionally high cheekbones, although they're not super pronounced due to his weaker facial definition. His dentofacial growth creates that lengthened, high cheekbone and OG curve look, But changing his cheekbones won't make or break his face because it's not a defining characteristic of his face. But flattening his cheekbones certainly doesn't help either. In contrast, giving him an OG curve similar to, say, Sean O'Pry, which is one of the highest paid male models in the world. Sean O'Pry, the guy we just mentioned, is an example of the 99th percentile of high cheekbones, and perhaps that's why he has so much success in the Western modeling world. Again, he's one of the highest paid models in the industry. The same can be said for successful model David Gandy, who, shaving off some of Sean's zygomatic bone, makes his cheekbones look lower, less masculine, and less sharp. Another example would be Mauritian model Shauna Blackburn, with mixed East African roots from the island of Mauritius, has somewhat medium to low cheekbones and overall shorter facial height. Making her cheekbones more compact and higher set changes her look quite significantly. Another popular face today, Chris Evans, also has very high cheekbones, and it's a common theme for most superhero actors to have strong dentofacial growth, high cheekbones, wide faces, strong jaws. There are requirements in looks to playing certain roles, and at Coos, all we do is explain the beauty standards that already exist. A supermodel that most of you probably know, Adriana Lima, has cheekbones that are incredibly high and prominent. Again, cheekbones like this are very rare, so she can probably attribute a lot of her success to her facial features. The widest part of her face is so close to her eyes, and her OG curve almost comprises her entire mid-facial height. Adding some shadows further brings her depth or 3D-ness to her OG curve. A study by Linkov et al. In the Aesthetic Surgery Journal sought to study the desirable mid-face position of female test subjects. To summarize their findings, the distance from the pupillary line or the eye line to the mid-face is a strong indicator of youth. It is no secret then that high cheekbones are so attractive. Adriana has that lifted bone structure appearance with minimal distance from her mid-face to her eyes, and thus she will likely age better than somebody who is lacking those mid-facial bones. A mid-face lift can have a powerful effect on how youthful your face looks and how long it stays. The researchers note that a defined S-shaped OG curve is important in an idealized, heart-shaped, youthful-looking face. So to close this video out, a prerequisite to seeing if your cheekbones are high or low is to not have a high amount of body fat. That should be pretty obvious. Actor O'Shea Jackson Jr. is a counterexample of this. On top of already poor dentofacial growth and low cheekbones, high amounts of facial fat just flatten out the cheeks. Lastly, we have model Safi. She also has some more facial fat than some of the previous models that we've shown, but prominent cheekbones and favorable body fat distribution make her OG curve still very much visible. Photoshopping her low cheekbones to be higher and more compact gives her face a slimmer and arguably more harmonious result. There is a noticeable difference in what Eastern beauty standards seems to prefer and Western standards do, which we have covered many times on the channel. They're not exactly the same. In the West, it is very common to see an increase in cheekbone volume and dimension, much like how we suspect that Kim K had submalar implants in our video analysis of her. However, in contrast, Eastern beauty standards actually want the opposite. They would look down on prominent cheekbones. Especially for women, the belief is that these strong, sharp features make a woman look stubborn or arrogant. We've explained this a couple of times on the channel using the example of Lucy Liu, how she's seen in the East versus how she's praised in the West. And in the East, they generally want more curvaceous features rather than angularity, so cheekbones are often shaved down using what's known as zygoma reduction surgery. So if you've watched this whole video and you're like, God damn man, that's way too much information for me. Can you just please tell me if I have high or low cheekbones? Well, then you're in luck. A couple of years ago, our audience really kept asking us that question. And so we designed the Coos Aesthetic Report, where we assess your face using exactly what we're teaching you here. Our in-house team of doctors and dentists give you feedback on how you can achieve this, whether it be surgically or non-surgically possible, your lifestyle changes and your age, financial ability, our experience looking at thousands of faces, and from that we produce morphs that you can show your doctor if that's something you want to do. If you have no money to invest in your glow up journey, your aesthetics journey, your lookism, looks maxing, whatever you want to call it, the very least you can do is invest your time to learn the basics. We have plenty of resources on aesthetics and faces over at the Coos website that you should be reading.